All right, everyone, I think we can go ahead and begin the presentation. We really appreciate everyone signing up for and attending our webinar today. So thank you all for being here as we present our webinar, Cloud ERP for Wholesalers and Distributors. My name once again is Seth, and I'm the Marketing Manager with Keystone. Just a few reminders up front that all of our attendees are in listen-only mode. If you have any questions or comments during the webinar, please feel free to type them into the question or chat panes, and you should see those towards the right-hand side of your screen. We are going to try to save some time at the end of the webinar to answer any questions from our audience, but please feel free to throw those out as the webinar progresses. I'm counting on all of you to ask away if you have any questions for us. Also, this session is being recorded, and a copy will be emailed to everyone within a few days. So with all that said, I think we can go ahead and officially get started here. Again, we really appreciate all of you being here with us today, and I'm very thankful and excited to have you with us for the next hour. I'm also very pleased to have a couple of my colleagues joining me here on the call. I'm proud to have Keystone's President, Eric Joswiak, as well as our Business Development Manager, Brian Stisser, joining me as our panelists and featured presenters. And I just clicked ahead to the next slide to give you all a brief overview of what we're going to be covering in the presentation today. So first we'll introduce you to Keystone, tell you a little bit about us, then we'll briefly introduce you to NetSuite and tell you a little bit about them. After that, we will discuss Cloud ERP for wholesalers and distributors. And then we'll hop into a NetSuite demo account and take you for a little bit of a virtual test drive there. So that'll be fun, and we hope you'll enjoy that. And then finally, we'll try to save some time for Q&A at the end. So again, please feel free to ask away as the webinar progresses. And so with all that said, Brian, if you're ready, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you.
Okay, excellent. Next slide, please. So a little bit of background about Keystone Business Services, who we are. We specialize in implementing cloud-based business solutions, in particularly NetSuite ERP. We've been doing that for 11 years. And across a variety of different businesses, mostly focused in the mid-market. Really very focused on a close partnership with our customers. We look for long-term continued partnership, not just a sell the ERP and move on. We really look to make sure that we are continuing to support our clients going forward and make sure that they're able to succeed. And that has historically driven Keystone's entire business model with a very strong preference for referral business from existing customers to really show that long-term partnership. Next slide, please. So a few of our sample clients, again, there's some different industries represented here, but most of these have some type of a distribution element, some with more or less manufacturing or services involved, but most of them do have some type of a distribution aspect to their business. Next slide, please. So to the main point of the webinar, why do wholesalers and distributors choose cloud, and specifically cloud for ERP? And a huge part of it goes to that idea that as a business, you should be focused on your core competency. And if it doesn't contribute to your core competency, then it is a potential subject for outsourcing. And as a wholesaler or a distributor, running information systems isn't your core competency. That means that if you're maintaining your own systems, particularly your own ERP, you're needing to worry about updates. That is a technology problem that is, again, not core to your business. You end up having to plan for the system to support your business versus being able to focus on the more core business choices about expansion or entering new markets or rolling out a new product line versus being able to simply make those business choices and have the system support it. Security, it as a distributor with a smaller IT staff, it is not feasible for every distribution company out there to match the level of security that a large cloud provider is able to build into their solution. And all of those things come together to actually lead to a lower total cost of ownership over the time you have the system. So instead of having that big upfront licensing and then these ongoing maintenance costs, you actually are able to have that cost distributed, and the total cost ends up being lower when you account for the upfront licensing and the actual maintenance costs. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, Keystone is very much specialized in NetSuite. That is our core business, is working with NetSuite ERP. So a little bit of background on who NetSuite is, what they do. So they are a global business unit of Oracle, focused on small to mid-market companies for the Oracle perspective. They are global, so they are in most countries in the world. They were the first cloud ERP on the market, and they are one of the very few that is a true cloud multi-tenant ERP. So a lot of the other solutions out there, they are in a cloud environment, but it was a solution that was designed for being run on premise for you keeping it on your own server, and it's just being hosted by the company that sells it. So it wasn't built to be a cloud solution. It's been jammed into a cloud environment, and it doesn't work the same. Tens of thousands of customers, with thousands being added each year. Next slide, please. So at this point, I'm going to hand it over to Eric, who's going to walk you through a short case study for one of our customers.
Yep. All right. So thank you, Brian. Hello, everyone. This is Eric Joswiak, and thanks for taking time to join us today. So we've got a short case study of a wholesale distribution firm. They've been a client for a number of years. Vertex Wireless, who's based here in the western suburbs of Chicago. They're a distributor of wireless cell phones, and they and this is a quote from Martin Lund, who's their system administrator, just about how we work with our client. I know Brian earlier said we're collaborative and we're responsive, and I think Martin's quote really kind of speaks to a lot of that. But a little bit about Vertex. So they're a wireless phone distributor, and think of someone who's distributing phones to large national retail chains. So they're actually distributing and shipping by the pallet. And if you've ever, for those of you who are in that space or know that space, probably aware that there's a lot of serialization in that, and also there's actually multiple serial numbers, because you've got both a serial number and oftentimes a serial and an IMEI, which have to be paired together on the phone. So there's a lot of real data requirements. And of course, when you're shipping by the pallet, thousands of phones at a time, it can be a challenge. And that is the challenge that they had, specifically. They'd be receiving, whether it was receiving or shipping by a pallet. It was difficult, because if you've ever worked, one of NetSuite's limitations is, the cutting and pasting a huge file of serial numbers, or trying to get all the data perfectly correct is obviously something that, it's hard for the warehouse workers to actually do that correctly and efficiently. And so, and also the NetSuite, through the user interface, there was a limit of about 500 phones, that serial numbers you could enter in at one time, versus, oftentimes Vertex would be receiving 5,000 to 10,000 phones at a time. And, serial numbers are up to 20 characters, and then the IMEI is also the same size. So if you think just the amount of data that the warehouse folks were trying to manually enter made a very slow process to actually be able to receive those phones into inventory, and error prone because how they were doing it, was they had to remember what they had entered in a spreadsheet with 5,000 rows, which people don't always remember very well. So anyhow, so what we did is we actually came up with a solution that allowed them to basically just take a spreadsheet and submit it and attach it to a purchase order. So of course you'd have a purchase order for the phones and all the phones quantities. And what's good is, and for those of you in distribution, sometimes your manufacturers give you clean data with serial numbers, and sometimes they don't. So fortunately, Vertex, in their business, they were getting clean data, which was accurate from their manufacturer. So we created a system where the warehouse would just simply attach a file to a PO, and then we would go through and we would process all the receipts. It would take a few minutes because you're receiving tens of thousands of serialized items, but it would record all the serial numbers, book the receipt, and then actually send notifications when the transaction was processed, as well as if there were any errors, like, okay, there was a duplicate serial number, right? NetSuite runs validations on a lot of these processes. So anyhow, that was our solution. And then, as a result, it actually, this was a simple one-time custom coded solution, no ongoing time, no ongoing fees. When we do customizations, we give our clients a perpetual right to use the solution. And it's actually saved a tremendous amount, probably better than half of an FTE in their warehouse, because they literally used to have someone who would be sitting there at a desk trying to enter all this manually. So very good solution, very small, kind of pinpointed, but also really helped them with their business and saved them a lot of time and money and had a pretty quick payback. And they're still, they're an example of another client. We didn't actually implement them, but they came to us after, they were up and running. And, we do every now and then, they've got new products, new business opportunity, new solution, new line of business they're getting into. And they'll call us if they need any help getting those new processes established in NetSuite.
Great.
So thanks, Seth.
Yeah. Thank you, Eric. And so I think from here, Brian, we'll toss it back over to you.
All right, excellent. Thank you. So when we talk about cloud ERP, we want to compare to what the previous standard was. And in that previous old information system architecture, you had each different department or function in the business operating often in a different system that wasn't necessarily connected smoothly with the other ones. And so all that data is needing to be fed together, and it leads to a little bit of a jumble, and it makes it very difficult to get real-time insight out of the data, potential for errors. And again, it's very difficult to get both real-time insight and holistic insight into your business. Next slide, please. As a result of that, some of the problems this creates for wholesalers and distributors are things like it being really difficult to determine the lead time and on a critical piece of inventory to make sure that you don't have stockouts, but you also aren't carrying excess inventory. Obviously, really important for your profitability. It makes it so that you have inconsistent data between one department and another. And so which version of the truth is the real truth, and that can be really challenging to tell when everybody's working in different systems, to know who has the final word. Having all of those different systems, even things like costing on inventory, can become a real headache because of needing to pull one piece of information from one system and another piece from another, and then take it all into Excel and try and crunch the numbers. And then your spreadsheet, somebody changes a field and it breaks everything. So those are some of the problems that old siloed business system architecture creates. Next slide, please. So in terms of moving into a modern cloud ERP, and again, in particular for Keystone, we work with NetSuite. It really, if you're not using it, your competitors are using it, and so it is critical that you keep up with them. NetSuite is designed for modern business. It gives you the ability to adapt as the business environment changes around you, to whether that's to seize on new opportunities or to take a defensive posture with something like the massive disruption from COVID last year. You're able to get those real-time insights that you need. You're able to move into e-commerce or digital commerce in order to expand your footprint. And all in all, NetSuite is built very well to support wholesale distribution. It's one of the core industries that NetSuite serves the best. Next slide, please. So again, we said NetSuite's designed for modern business, and what does that mean? So one of the things is that it really is more accessible for you and your team to use the system, whether that is to enter data or to find the insights that you're looking for to support decision making. It being a cloud system, it's like Gmail that you may use for your personal email. Oracle runs the software. You're not running the software. You're not setting up servers and configuring them and installing the software and installing updates and patches. Oracle takes care of those things, and you are able to focus on your business decisions. Because you aren't worrying about installing servers, you're not worrying about setting up a firewall for the ERP. That means that if you need to add a new warehouse, you need a computer and internet connection. And as long as you can connect to the internet, your new warehouse is online. You can add a location. You're not talking about needing to set up a server and go through all of the headache that those old systems would bring in. And with that, it really it gives you a lot greater capabilities and the ability to add new capabilities quickly and adaptably. Next slide, please. And it's a cloud application. It's like Gmail, but for your financials. So it's designed for business people to use. It's not designed for deep technologists who are very steeped in software. It's made for a business user to be able to run their business on. That means that you get key information readily available to you. There's a global search capability that you can punch in what you're looking for, a customer name or an invoice number, and easily find it without having to click through 10 different menus to find it. And then you can configure it so that it shows your business processes versus what the software company defined should be your business processes. So you're able to make it look like what it should for your business without having to always turn to paying an outside developer to write a whole lot of computer code to do that. Next slide, please. And with that last point about being configurable, that really gives you a lot of flexibility. And that flexibility comes in two forms. One is the configurability. The other is because it's all in one system, when you need to change a process, you're changing it in one system, not in 5 systems that span different areas of the business. So when you have a new process or you need to add a new SKU or a whole new line of SKUs, you're able to do that much more readily because one update spreads across your entire business, and you have tools to allow that update to be done quickly, as Eric was mentioning with that Vertex Wireless case study, where you can go in and say, we need to be able to import 10,000 serial numbers in one go, and the system supports allowing you to do that, even if it's not what other businesses are doing. Next slide, please. So with old information systems, again, where you're setting up a server and you're installing that software, it ends up being very maintenance centric, and you are spending a huge amount of time and resources on installing updates, installing security patches, backing up servers, and oftentimes that's a full-time employee that's doing all of those things. For security reasons, this is all your financials. You don't want that to be exposed, so you have to keep it behind a firewall, which makes it really challenging for anybody to access if they need to work remotely. Again, if you need to add a new location, you need to add a new server and expand it all out, and or have a VPN, all of these technical concerns that as a business user are just a distraction from making core business choices. All of that really ties you down, and you're focused on maintaining your system, not on running your business. By pushing all of that to Oracle and having Oracle handle those technical concerns that aren't business concerns, it allows you to focus on running the business and on succeeding. You have the data you need when you need it, and you are able to change your system to support you versus having to adapt your business to fit the system. Next slide, please. So I mentioned configuration as part of the flexibility for NetSuite, and with NetSuite versus some of the older applications out there, and I mentioned those ones that were designed for on-premise and kind of shoved into a cloud-like environment. With NetSuite, it is designed for configuration even at the end user level. So you as the CFO or COO, you can go in and you can personalize your dashboard. You can set up, they're called saved searches that will pull data for you on a recurring basis. For those things that go a little bit beyond what you as the executive or other end user might need, might be interested in doing in the system, there's a level of configuration where you can create, it's light customization. So inside of NetSuite, using the user interface, you can do things to make it look more like your business, whether that's changing the name of a field, whether it's creating a new record that matches something you do in your business. So if you have different types of sales orders, creating a new type of sales order that handles the specific use cases you need. A workflow engine that is a drag and drop workflow builder, so that you don't need to rely on, again, outside consultants every time you need to do a small automation in the system. And then for those things where your core competitive advantage that is distinct, and that's why it's your competitive advantage, you still have that ability to turn to customization and to have developers at a partner like Keystone write custom code to fully automate those critical processes and enable that competitive advantage for you. Next slide, please. So part of being a system support modern businesses is providing business intelligence that is accessible, and as I said on the last slide, allows you as a user or an executive to go in and find the insights you need. So if that is looking at what happens if we change the order reorder point on a piece of inventory, you can easily go in and do that analysis, and the system will support you on that so that you can make forward-looking decisions and actually have actionable insight. Next slide, please. So that visibility into your business is critical. Again, it's where most businesses are going today, and it has caught up in the wholesale distribution space. So having that forward-looking visibility into your business, that's what your competitors are doing. And in order to keep up, you need to have that same visibility to be able to make decisions, because if you don't, you're getting left behind. Next slide, please. So in some of the older systems, again, where you're pulling things from multiple different applications, whether that's QuickBooks and Fishbowl, or you're taking it out of Sage and you're crunching it in Excel, answering some of these core business questions can be a really time-consuming process, and by the time you get the answer's already out of date. So if you need to know critical things like which channel is delivering the best sales or the best profits, then you need to be able to get that right away. And NetSuite provides that ability to go in and quickly find that information in the system, versus, again, having to pull reports from 3 different systems and bring it into Excel and do pivot tables. Here you can set up that saved search that we mentioned, and you'll have those items on a real-time dashboard as you need them. Next slide, please. So e-commerce, we mentioned it a little bit before. And in the past, e-commerce has really been thought of as being mostly business to consumer, but that's not the case anymore. It has become imperative for distributors and wholesalers to have e-commerce options, partially because everybody has been so spoiled by Amazon and the choices that they give us, that B2B buyers are looking for that type of experience for many of their orders for the business. Furthermore, when you look at the cost of an e-commerce transaction for a small sale or a routine sale, it's not the best use of professional sales reps' time. So having an e-commerce capability for a distributor means you can push those lower value kind of run-of-the-mill transactions through that more automated e-commerce process. You're actually providing your customers the experience they prefer, not having to call and interface with a sales rep. And you're actually going to improve margins because sales rep time is valuable. Sales rep time is expensive, and automating those processes will improve the margins on those smaller transactions. And then what some distributors are also doing is even moving downstream into a direct-to-consumer market as well, having that e-commerce option so that the end consumer can come to them if that's what they want to do. Next slide, please. So NetSuite enables digital commerce or e-commerce in a couple of different areas. So one is the front-end experience, and that could be if you already have something like Shopify in place, you can integrate that into your back-end NetSuite environment, or you can actually use NetSuite as an e-commerce environment as well. And then it supports the back-end operations, making it so that you can deliver that rapid fulfillment and process those orders quickly so that you, again, deliver that consumer-like experience that customers expect today. Next slide, please. So finally, I mentioned security earlier. And that's one of the areas where having your ERP system in the cloud delivers better performance, because Oracle spends a lot of time and money making sure that they are providing a secure system to their customers. Because if there were a problem, then that would be a very negative impact for Oracle. So the data centers that NetSuite is hosted in are PCI compliant. They are heavily audited. They have badge in, badge out procedures. They have multiple backups. All of these things that are the security best practices, but it's not your core competency as a distributor. So it's a lot of overhead to look at. Because Oracle is doing it across all of those tens of thousands of NetSuite customers, they can focus the resources on it that it wouldn't really make sense for you as a distributor to focus on your system. Delivering better security without the headache for you. Next slide, please. And at this point, I'm going to hand it back over to Eric for the NetSuite demo.
All right, thanks very much, Brian. I appreciate that. Let's see, Seth, do you want to pass?
Sure.
Me as the presenter. We're gonna, Yeah, so for the demo, we're going to start with just an overview and introduction into NetSuite and talk about roles and how those are used, and I kind of take an executive view of how an executive will be able to see and do in a NetSuite environment. And then we'll do a lead to cash process, kind of a day in the life, if you will, of someone who is in sales, warehouse operations, accounting, and how they execute transactions seamlessly from start to finish. And then we'll finish up with a little bit overview of reporting, both financial reporting as well as operations reports and other key metrics. So what you're looking at right now is actually it's a live NetSuite account. So as a NetSuite partner, we have access to a number of demo accounts, and so this is one of those accounts. It's staged with a lot of data, which makes it much better to show the prospects what it's like to work in NetSuite. And I'm actually logged in right now as a senior executive. And during the course of this demo, I'm going to switch roles several times. But the couple things about roles define what you can see and what you're able to do. So logged in as a senior executive, what you see on my dashboard is a lot of top-level financials, overall financial results of the business, bank payables, right, bank balances down here. And what you'll notice is, when eventually I log in as a warehouse person, I don't have access to any of that information. So roles define what you're able to do. They also define your main navigation tab. So NetSuite is organized, for a senior person: sales and marketing, expenses, HR, financial, right? Kind of the core, a lot of the functional areas. And so that's the way a lot of executives will look at a business. And what you'll see is when we get to the warehouse user, it's totally different. It's about shipping and receiving and more applicable for them. But that's what the roles define. And then the rest of this dashboard, this comes pre-configured with NetSuite. We call their Suite Success Editions. So the Suite Success Editions, there's editions for wholesale distribution. That's one of the more common one that's purchased because a lot of wholesale WD customers run on NetSuite. But there's also other editions, manufacturing, food and beverage, etc. But this is the default Suite Success dashboard. And again, you're looking at data down here, revenue, expenses, and you're also seeing the data graphically. Graphic presentation is great. It's always easier to grasp quickly versus just looking at some numbers. I do like to talk a little bit about the flexibility of NetSuite and the application. I know Brian touched on that, but it's a very dynamic application. So, for example, if room on your dashboard is always very, very important, and this KPI portlet takes up the whole center of the screen. Well, if I want to kind of collapse it so I can see what's beneath it, all I have to do is tap. Just one tap collapses everything. Tap it again, it opens up. So there's very easy ability to move things around as well. For example, like shortcuts. If I wanted to put shortcuts up here above, I'd just click on it and drag it up. But likely wouldn't do that because of reminders. I'm going to move them back. Reminders are the key things you want to look at when you log in, so you want something like that in your upper left all the time. But here too, right, I can collapse, I can expand. These graphs show a lot of different ways of presenting data, line graphs, bar graphs, and all of these have varying periods. This is by accounting period. If I want to see this by quarter, I can see it by quarter. Very simple to change back and forth. Here's some, monthly sales and billings trends. And then, of course, because there's so much available in NetSuite, a lot of times we use these we call this a navigation portlet, which just has quick links to to the key reports and data that someone in this role would typically like to see: AR aging, AP aging, sales by customer or customer profitability, etc. The other thing I'd say about these is this is all very drilled down and it's all real time. So For example, if I want to look at my sales number for, last fiscal quarter, 2.55 million, I can click on that and it immediately gives me a list by customer, total sales by customer. I could change the date range if I wanted to, even though it was this quarter, or I can actually kind of drill in to entities. So if I want to actually see, well, what was in that 150K, it's going to actually show me by invoice, by item, what made up that. And then if I actually want to drill into the invoice, I would just, click on the invoice, and then it's going to take me, directly to that invoice. So a lot of this is very, very, very customizable, and you can drill down into the data. And then each of these, so, the top of your dashboard is your most important real estate, because this is what you're going to see when you log in every day. And this is, I think as an executive, the key metrics you want to look at, you want to make sure they're all right here. Because you'll always log into your homepage. But each of these other tabs has a dashboard as well. And, so this is the financials indicator. And, here you can see I've got a different set of key performance indicators, and I've got these financials overview. So if you're a financially oriented executive or CFO, these types of reports, again, these are pre-built. We just deploy them. Formulas are almost exact, client to client. But this shows you, bank balance, revenue, COGS, gross profit, for this period, for last period, this fiscal quarter to period, last fiscal quarter, this fiscal year, to date, last fiscal year to date. So you can really look at these metrics and trends over time. And then these also are, similarly, if I want to look at total bank balance, there's a little icon here. I can click on that icon, and it's going to show me by bank balance, by period. I can do it by period, by quarter, by year. And then also here I can export it. So if I'm looking at some data, NetSuite's very easy to export. I can just click on the export, and it's going to open it for me in Excel. So if I want to do some quick offline analysis, which I do this in our account, we run on NetSuite. Many times I'll export some of the key data and just to do some trend or margin analysis, or just assess some metrics. So it's very easy to get to all your data in NetSuite. Like Brian was saying, this is all about ease of use and really getting you the data you need right in front of you to be able to effectively manage the business. So that's the executive view, and real quickly I'll log over to and switch to the controller role, different role, and generally looks the same, although some of the main tabs are a little bit different. Billing, customers, vendors, payroll, right, versus the executive one was sales and marketing, HR. So they're, slightly different navigation. You'll also notice a controller has a whole bunch of reminders, right? Senior executives, typically not many reminders, because reminders about executing transactions, completing tasks. So controllers have a lot. Purchase orders to approve, bills to pay, allocation schedules that are due, right? Senior executives, not that many reminders. And then, of course, everything I mentioned, the ability to move things around, the shortcuts, the financial overview, that's a standard, portlet that both the senior executive and the controller can see. Bank recs are there as well, of course, bank recs. But slightly different role, and we'll come back to this. When we do our order to cash demo, we are going to, in the end, invoice as the controller. So we'll come back to this role. So anyways, at this point, I will flip over to sales, and I'm going to just start this whole order to cash process, what it's like to flow an order through. And what you're going to see is within about 5 to 10 minutes, I'll have created an opportunity, sent a quote, convert that quote to an order, have the warehouse ship it, and have it be invoiced, all with no rekeying through the process. So this is a sales rep dashboard, and again, a sales rep dashboard has all the types of things you might expect. They've got an activities portlet where they're tracking their phone calls to make and their tasks that are due. Anyone who's a manager that manages salespeople knows some reps will use that, some reps won't, right? It really depends on how the individual likes to run their business. But I actually created I had just come in here earlier today and I created a webinar lead to use. So this is a lead, not a customer. Lead is someone who comes in, right, hasn't bought from you, might have hit your website as a contact us, might have been imported as someone that was met at a trade show. When trade shows start to happen again in the future, obviously not much of that in the past year, but however they happen to come in, might come in through a partner or referral. And the lead is kind of a basic record, just information about the name of the business, the status, some basic contact information, web address. We do like a lot of, I think it's beneficial to track industry categories, number of employees, right? Those firmographics are not that hard to track, and they actually help with really targeting future marketing campaigns. And then also down here on the relationships tab is where, you can have the contacts that are associated to this lead. So typically in the WD industry, your leads will be companies, not individuals. You can set up your your leads as individuals as well. But most of the time, WD, there's multiple folks you're trying to contact at a lead, and so you kind of work those as one lead. But we're going to jump real quick to. All right, I had a quick phone call with this lead, and I realized that hey, there's an opportunity here. They're kind of interested in buying one of our products. So I can open up the opportunity from the customer, from the lead record. It's going to, automatically associate it with that lead because that's where I started from. I could, put some high-level notes here. You can track actually a lot of information if you'd like, but I'm not gonna worry about that too much in the interest of time. But I'm going to, go ahead and add some products, right? And so I'm thinking about, selling these folks that are interested in iPads. And so if I tap iPad, I can see, I've got a Pro 5.7 inch, a Pro 12.9 inch, another Pro, 128 gigabytes, 256. So what's nice about this as a rep, I actually see what's in stock and what's available. So I know it's available to sell, it's in stock. I can sell it right now. It can ship it today. I can close the sale. So, we're going to go ahead and we're going to choose this one. There's all sorts of price levels and other things, but I'm just going to say these guys are going to, buy 9, and I'm going to just set this just for ease of use later. I'm going to say that this is actually getting sold out of Boston. So go ahead and save that. Very easy. And of course, I want to send it to the client so that they can sign it. And DocuSign integrates with NetSuite. We don't have it integrated in this instance, but a lot of people don't use DocuSign. But what they do is they will send a quote with a signature line that the customer can sign and then send back with their PO. So the way to do that from NetSuite, the quote is the customer-facing document. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create a quote. So NetSuite's going to copy everything over. I don't need to rekey everything. Right, you can do multiple quotes, and especially in B2B environments, maybe you've got an opportunity and you're quoting a good, better, best, right? You can do that that could be 3 different quotes. The rep can elect which they want to include in their forecast, right? But they're all there. They're all associated with one opportunity, so you're not triple forecasting that potential sale. You're actually just checking which of the 3 is really the best. And I really don't need to change anything. I can just create this quote and save it. And then NetSuite does support the ability to email directly from within the application. And most clients who use NetSuite CRM, they are emailing their quotes to their either whether it's a repeat customer or a new prospect directly from NetSuite. And that's done just through the embedded email feature. I click email, it shows me a pop-up. I can choose, if there were multiple contacts here, I could choose which contact I want to send it to. There's templates, so I can say this. I'd probably want a quote follow-up template. There is a quote follow-up template. There's a lead template, and then do I want to attach the transaction? Yes, as a PDF. And if I want to preview this, right, these could be rich HTML templates. So as you can see, dear Eric, it's doing a mail merge, right, to show my first name, and then you can also, right, what's nice about these templates is you can edit them, right? So you can start with a default and add custom content, right? So you can start with something that's pretty canned, but then the rep can easily just make a small modification or two, and it will seem like a total personal email. You can merge and send, and off it goes. Let's see. And so that went out, and then if the customer replies, it'll come and it'll be associated to this quote. It would also go directly to the sales rep's email inbox, whatever, if you use Gmail or Office 365, whatever email platform you're using as a business. So at this point, they get assigned, rep gets assigned, sales order gets assigned quote back, and all the rep has to do is click the sales order button. And this is going to create the sales order. It's pretty common for a lot of folks to actually put these into a pending approval, or they go to sales operations, for review. This account is set up where it goes straight to the warehouse. And you can also have approval routing rules. So if it's a certain margin, or if it's below a certain dollar amount, it's auto approved. Different dollar amounts can have different approval levels on them as well. So we'll go ahead and save this. And now I'm done as a sales rep. So I got my call, I sent a quote, customer signed the quote, I actually created the sales order, I'm done. And now I just want to wait to see for the invoice to go out, and track that as well. And I'll say this, NetSuite, I'm going to make a joke about commissions, but NetSuite does have they do have an integrated commissions module that is very useful. So I'm going to just log in now as a warehouse. So the sales order is in, it's created. You can see it's in pending fulfillment. It did not need to be routed for approval because I sold at list price, and it's in stock. So I can just easily flip over here to the warehouse operator role. And I will say this, in warehouses, a lot of our clients have more sophisticated warehouse processes. NetSuite has some good basic functions, but there are firms like RF Smart who do a lot of more advanced barcoding, cycle counting functionality. RF Smart is actually totally built in NetSuite as well, so we do have a lot of clients, a number of clients who use both of those. So I'm logged in here as the warehouse guy now. Next step in the demo, you can see shipping, receiving, very different, and my reminders in the warehouse, orders to fulfill. That's my job. That's what I do. That's what's going to be, as a reminder. 87 is a lot, right? They should, you'd like that queue to be small at the end of the day. But this orders to fulfill is where I would go to see all the various orders to fulfill. And of course, there are a lot of orders in here. There's over hundreds of orders. And this is, sales orders, transfer orders, right? They're all going to show up here. And you can filter different things. But and there's also a process for pick, pack, ship. But here's that sales order I just created with my WD webinar lead. So, I'm going to want to fulfill this. But there is a process for, printing pick tickets, and there's a multi-stage pick, pack, and ship. But if I'm going to, fulfill this individually, I just figured I'd kind of want to show you a couple things. This is showing you it defaulted to Boston. There's 15 on hand. There's 9 committed to this order, so it's going to fulfill 9. The inventory detail already checked out is good, the little checkbox. If this was serialized, that's where you would go, that little inventory detail to choose which, scan the serial numbers that you're actually fulfilling on this line. There's also inventory status, right? But this defaulted already. It knows, it committed the inventory to the order, and it committed from a particular bin that's available, for shipment. And then up here you can see there's, a pick, pack, ship status. You can have one person marking it picked, then someone packing it, marking it packed, and then a third person shipping it. But we're just going to go right to ship. And then on the shipping tab, there is a UPS integration. There's a FedEx integration by default that, it'll go and it'll actually, based on the package definitions and the weight, it'll use your shipping rate card you've negotiated with the carrier, including any markup, right? You can apply markups to that as well. But we're not going to want to use that shipping integration here, and we're just going to say it's an LTL. LTL generic carrier, which I know means, there's no shipping integration involved. So I'll go ahead and save that. And so I've now fulfilled the order, and which means that order now is in a pending, it's in a pending billing category. So if on save, it's going to take me to my list of sales orders to fulfill, and this order that I created is no longer there. It's been fully shipped. It's I no longer have to look at it. So this is the way the warehouse is set up. It's just you fulfill one and it takes you back to the list, and you fulfill another, it takes you back to the list. So I'll log in now as controller, and again as controller, sales orders to invoice, like another standard reminder for the controller. Now a lot of times we will deploy a simple process where everything that's ready to be invoiced is auto invoiced at early evening and auto emailed to clients. I don't think I clicked that. So I don't want you to think that controllers have to go in and actually send these invoices manually, which is kind of what I'm going to do here. They can at any time if they need to, but it's more common to do a batch process. And then here's that webinar lead. This is now ready to invoice. Typically we set the counts up so that you can't invoice before you fulfill, but you can also allow yourself to invoice before you fulfill. So again, a lot of settings in NetSuite that people can elect to that really define how the system works. And so here's my invoice for $9,000, and all I have to do is save this and it's invoiced. Typically we would have an auto email process where the invoice is emailed. A lot of times there's a distribution that clients want to set up on a customer record. They go to this individual, but also to an AP alias, right, at the client address. It's very common. And so I invoiced that sales order. Now it's taking me right back and saying, all right, what do you want to invoice next? So that's really, that's it. I'm going to stay here as controller. The last thing I did want to touch on was reporting. But, from a demo perspective, logged in as a sales rep, worked an opportunity, worked a lead, created an opportunity, sent a quote, created the sales order, then logged in once the sales order was in, moved over to the operations team, fulfilled that order, and then invoiced that order. All very seamless, no rekeying, no issues, no multi-systems, and that all that data is now completely reflected in real time in all of my financials. So, if I wanted to, let's look at some of the financial reports. There's a lot of reports built into NetSuite, but standard income statement. This is a multi-subsidiary account. So here I'm looking at. So obviously haven't done a lot of March, but we'll just take it to January. Let's say January, March. Should have some more data in here. But this is at the headquarters, the consolidated basis. If I wanted to see each subsidiary independently, right, I can say, show me, the results by subsidiary, in which case it's going to break this out. Everything's in the United States. Let's go back further so we get some more data. So we'll go back to all of last year. So here you can see there's Canada headquarters, UK, US data, and all of these. If I wanted to see by one of my segments, like product line or class, I could say, show this to me by class. Class is typically used whether it's product line, service line, line of business, right? And it a lot of times takes you generally down to the gross profit line. But here you can see computers and peripherals, consumer electronics, high tech, industrial electronics. And this, again, just by default, but just by coding your items with a class, you can actually, get to a gross profit by line of business. It's all very simple. The other thing, if we go to reports, there are a number of other canned reports, banking, budgeting reports, your purchase order reports, purchases by vendor, open purchasing, AP reports, inventory items. This is your inventory profitability, inventory valuation. If I want to look at my inventory profitability, it's going to show me those iPads that I just sold, and it shows. Trying to find where iPads are. But it'll show total profitability for those iPads. Sold 19, total cost, total revenue, margin, average margin on the products. So obviously there's not a lot of data in here. There's also customer profitability, and again, available in real time. So a lot of standard reports, and then with Suite Success, they actually build a lot of custom reports that are based on, interviews and focus groups with other wholesale distributors that said, hey, what are the custom reports you want that weren't available out of the box? And so those are also part of the Suite Success Edition. So that's about it. I know I got a few minutes left before our time is up. So Seth, I'll let you take it back.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Eric. So that wraps up the demo portion of the webinar. I know we're getting real close on time here. We had a couple questions come in. The first one, is this webinar being recorded? Yes, it is. I will make sure to get a copy out to everybody within a couple days. Next question, how many roles can a person have? And I don't know if there is not a limit. Okay. So, you pay by the license, which is an email address. So if someone has 10 roles, that's still just one license. Most people might have a couple roles. Probably the most common is to have one role, right, and just set up that role. But if you were to look at my login, I've got probably 200 roles across 10 different subscriptions. So there is no limit to the number of roles someone can have. Okay, great. Well, I know we're close on time here, so I'm going to move to concluding. I just pulled up our social media accounts. If you're not already following us on social media, please give us a like and a follow on Twitter and LinkedIn especially, and Facebook as well. We promote lots of webinars like this one on there, as well as our latest blog posts, announcements, and much more. And last but not least, I wanted to share, I just pulled Eric and Brian's contact information up, as well as the link to our website. Please feel free to visit the site, reach out to us if you'd like more information. We'd love to talk more with you. But that's it for now. We are out of time, but thank you once again, everybody, for attending. Thank you for taking the time to be here with us. We really appreciate it, and we will be in touch soon. Thank you.